Alright, so we are going to talk about what's on the inside of that panel there. Right now I've got it in a heat pump mode with the electric heat running, the outdoor unit running, and of course the blower is running. So now let's open the panel up and see what we got. Okay, starting at the very top, we have our second stage timer or our outdoor sensor dial. The next one, we have the low limit, the low temperature limit, and that is for when you're in the air conditioning mode. The supply air sensor will, depending on what you have it set on, 34, 37, 40, 43, 46, 49, or 52. That's degrees. So depending on what you set it at, once the supply air sensor says, let's say you have it set on 43, the supply air sensor says, hey, it's 43 degrees, let's shut the outdoor unit off. It will do that. The next one over is your high temperature limit. If right now I've got it set real low because of the I'll be using a cup of water, heated water, to simulate that, but there's a 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170 degrees, and next to it is the second stage heat differential. If you have two-stage heating, you can, let's say you have your high temperature limit set for 140 degrees. If you set it for, let's say right now it's on about 22 or so, that would mean your second stage heat would lock out if it got to 162, since your first high limit switch or high limit is at 140 plus 23, that would be 163 degrees. Okay, your next one here, starting from the top right, you have your SAS and your SAS. That is where your supply air sensors connect. The next one down is your OAS. That is where your outdoor sensor wires connect to. The next one, you have zone 3 thermostat connection. You got common, W, Y, R, and G, and I'll explain what this wire, what that jumper wire is for in just a few minutes. Down you have zone 2. Of course, it's common, W, Y, R, and G. W being your heat, Y being your cooling, red being your R, and your G terminal. And the bottom, the next set there is common, W1, W2. Then you have your Y, and there again, that's where that jumper is, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. Then you have your red and your G, your emergency heat, and your one zone. That is what that EM, that if you had a thermostat with a dedicated E terminal, you hook that to there, your homeowner wouldn't have to come down to set the normal or the emergency. So if you hit that switch up, the outdoor unit goes off, and just your heat continues to run. Okay, now we're going to go to the other side of the board. We have your M6, M4, M2, and M1. That's your zone 3 damper. M1 is your common, going to your dampers. M2 is 24 volt continuous. M4 is your power open. It's your 24 volt power open. And your M6 is your 24 volt power close. And of course you have the same thing, zone 2, same thing, M1, M2, M4, and M6. The next one down is your zone 1 damper. Same thing, M1, M2, M4, and M6. and you have your 24-volt transformer is a must. These dampers do, you know, they do use power, so you must use a transformer when you install the zone board. And then you have your system wire G, Y2, Y1. You have your O terminal, your W1 B terminal, your W2 and E, and then of course your RH and RC. There's already a jumper installed, so you don't have to worry about putting a jumper in place. Okay, then in the center of the board you have your CPU reset, you have your timer reset. Anytime you make an adjustment to one of the dip switches or anything else, you have to hit your CPU reset. Then your timer reset, you hit it for staging. Let's go to normal. See, all right. See how that worked here. The light came back on because I switched over to normal. Then your next, the dip switch settings. First one is heat pump and gas. The next one is dual fuel or conventional. The next one is your on, your fan delay, so you have your on or your off. Then the next one is a 90-second purge or 120-second purge. And then your next one after that is your outdoor sensor or your timer for your second stage. The one after that is your 50% rule. I'll explain that here in a few minutes. You're off and you're on for the 50% rule. The supply air sensor is next one down. You have an off or on. I have a supply air sensor installed, so I am in the on position, and of course your gas or hydronic for your fan. Alright, I guess we'll talk about the 50% rule, because that's a nice part about this board. And that's where that other wire, that jumper wire, come in. Since this zone board, or since this panel that I've made, since it only has 2 zones attached to it. Alright, 50% rule. What the 50% rule is when you have when you're using, let's say, 2-stage heat, 2-stage heat pump, when you have a small zone run, just a bigger zone, let's say the master bedroom, for example. Let's say you had a house you went to, and the people were like, well, our master bedroom is, you know, we would like to have a thermostat in there. So you say, okay, well, let's do zoning. So you do the zoning, and they have the works already installed. They have 2-stage heat, 2-stage cooling. You don't want to run second stage in that little zone. So what you do is you set your 50% rule. But now let's say your other zone is big enough for your first and second stage to run. So what you have to do is you have to fool the board, and nowhere in the instructions will it say to do this. What you have to do is you have to run a jumper from your zone 1 thermostat up to your zone 3 thermostat. So anytime zone 1 calls, then it's going to automatically send a signal up to zone 3, and voila, now you have more than 2 zones calling. So your 50%, you had 2 zone calling, so your 50% rule will apply, and that's that. And then if the master bedroom calls by itself, then the unit cannot go into second stage. So that is the 50% rule, and it is, you know, it's a good thing to have. Especially, it doesn't matter if you only have single stage equipment, but once you get into 2-stage, that's when it really matters. So that is pretty much it. Oh, let me get the other damper that I bought. I bought it for a job. I hadn't put it in yet. Let me get it and I will show you their dampers and how sturdy they are.